The men entered the remains of the church and were greeted by a feeling of dread. Both men knew that they were not alone. Whatever was in here was certainly responsible for the disappearing children. Alder quickened his pace to a near sprint as he made his way down the aisle between the pews. Detective Holland kept Alder in sight, but kept enough distance so as to follow the initial plan. Alder reached into the staircase at the end of the sanctuary. He looked back quickly to see if Detective Holland was close enough behind him. He was pleased to find that Detective was a man who stuck to the plan. Alder proceeded up the stairs in a curious way. One wrong move and the stairs were likely to crumble. When he reached the top of the staircase, he came to a door. He wanted to wait for Detective Holland before opening. Detective Holland eased his way up the stairs, exercising as much caution as Alder, if not more. "I'll go high, you go low, and be careful," Alder said as he placed his hand upon the knob of the door. He slowly turned the knob and mouthed the count. 1, 2, and when he got to 3, he slung open the door. They braced themselves for the worst, yet on the other side of the door was nothing more than a long corridor with other doors lining the hall. "All right, new plan," Alder sighed. "I'll open this door, and you watch the other doors and make sure no one gets a drop on me. Once I've entered the room, wait for me to tell you it's clear, and then you follow, closing the door behind you." Holland nodded as a sign that he understood. Alder grasped the doorknob. As he had done before, he opened it quickly, charging inside. However, this time, the door flew off the hinges, and Alder fell in the room with quite a crash. The room began to shake and stones began to fall, blocking the doorway, preventing Detective Holland from coming to the aid of his associate. Fortunately, Alder's momentum found him far enough away from the toppling foyer as to keep him from being crushed by beneath the heavy stones. "Mr. Devlin, sir, are you all right?" cried the detective from out in the hall. Alder picked himself up from off the dusty floor and checked himself over. "I'm fine, detective, though I'm afraid that door is my only way out. Wait here, Mr. Devlin. I shall see about getting Constable Hopkins. He can help me clear this rubble." Alder could hear Detective Holland's steps descending the stairs. Great. The first break in the case, and he was trapped in an old church that was falling down around him. He stared at the heap of stones, preventing him from continuing his investigation. He tried to move one of the stones, but they were just too heavy. He would have to wait for Holland to return with Constable Hopkins. While Alder glared at his dilemma, from behind him he heard a voice call out. "Don't turn around," the voice said. Alder fought the urge to turn and face his assailant. He stood frozen and tried his hardest to see behind him with a sideway glance. "Who are you?" Alder demanded. "I've been expecting you, Alder Devlin," replied the strange voice. The man's voice sounded aged, not with time but with substance. It sounded as if when the man spoke, one would expect dust to fill the air. "I ask again, who are you?" Alder continued with a bit more force. "I was hoping that you would not have received Detective Holland's message. I was hoping you would remain in Blackstone. Yet when I found your arrival to be inevitable, I decided to leave you a small clue and lead you here. Perhaps I might convince you to leave London." Alder spun around to face his enemy. He had waited years to look into the face of the man who had taken his younger brother from him. To hell with the consequences, Alder would see his face, if it was the last thing he did. Standing before him, in front of the window, stood an oddly shaped man with the skin of ash. This man was far too skinny. He looked like a very tall skeleton of 6'3" or so. He had no hair, and his limbs were very long and thin. The man dressed in shredded rags of gray hues. It made it hard for Alder to tell where the man's gray skin ended and where the rags began. His eyes were black, and there were yellow rings. When the man moved, he moved quickly with no effort. His motions could only be described as memories of what you should have seen. "I'll leave London when you're dead," Alder said with conviction. "I was afraid you might feel that way," replied the gray skeleton man, "though you may find it difficult to kill me. You see, you've dropped your pistol." Damn. But if given the choice, He would much rather kill this villain with his bare hands. Before Alder could think to move, a cold breeze blew in through the window. The gray man's rags rose up from around his waist and revealed his stomach. His stomach was the same ashy gray color as his arms and face. Upon closer observation, Alder noticed contrasting white stripes about the man's stomach. They were scars. The man had hideous scars all over his stomach. Alder thought back to his brother Jack. When Jack was an infant, his mother had strapped him down in order to keep him from clawing at his stomach. Jack had scars on his stomach. The villain had now been revealed. Alder had found Jack, and now he wished he never had. "Goodbye, Alder," Jack told his brother before leaving out the 6-story window. Alder ran to the window and found that Jack had once again vanished into thin air. Alder was lost in a world he no longer understood. He tried to deny that what he had learned and found himself screaming out the church window. The people of London were shaken by the cries of a shattered man screaming for someone named Jack. The world went black, and Alder slipped into the past. When he awoke, he was back in the home of Detective Hallam. Hallam and another man Alder had not met before was standing above him, asking him what had happened. Alder was still a bit shaken and wasn't at all sure that what he had seen had actually transpired. "Alder," Hallam began, "this is Constable Hopkins. We heard you screaming someone's name when we went into the church. Someone named Jack. Who is this Jack? Is he the one responsible for these malicious acts?" Alder hated the way that the constable was asking him these questions with such convicting weight. However, he knew that he would have to tell the constable the truth. Jack had to be stopped, but he didn't trust Constable Hopkins. They had just met, but already Alder knew that Constable Hopkins was a fraudulent man. Alder needed to talk to Hallam alone, without the constable in the room. Just then, there came a knock at the door. It was a gypsy woman who insisted upon talking to Alder alone. Alder insisted that Detective Hallam be allowed to stay in the room. It was apparent that Constable Hopkins did not like being left out of the loop. Still, he did as he was asked and stepped outside. "You are the brother of the Jackal," the gypsy woman pointed at Alder as she spoke. "He is drawn to you. He is drawn to you and the children. He needs the children to appease his hunger. He suffers when he does not feed on the blood of the innocent. He isn't human anymore." "What do you mean he's his brother?" questioned Detective Hallam. "Who are you?" "They share the same mother and father," explained the gypsy. "I am Clee, daughter of Kareem. She is the one who cursed you. Cursed the one you know as Jack, when he was just a growing child inside of his mother's womb. She cursed him for your father's running us off of our land in Blackstone." "Wait a minute," Alder said as he sat up on the couch. "If your mother cursed him, then why does it seem that you're trying to help us?" Clee looked to be in a panicked state. Her words were fast and to the point. Fortunately, both Alder and Detective Hallam were men who took to the gypsy's woman's speed. "The Jackal knows no limits. He kills indiscriminately. He has taken the children of my clan. He has even taken my daughter Gallo. Only you can stop him, Alder Devlin. He cannot be killed by any weapon forged by man. There are no spells that will bind him. His curse must be taken by another." "How do I take the curse?" Alder asked. "You must destroy him as he destroys children. He feeds off of them. The Jackal devours his prey, so he must be devoured. Then his curse will be lifted and transferred into a new host. Be warned, though, for when you take his curse of hunger, you will suffer as he once suffered. You will feel the deep desire to feed on the innocent. If you do, you will become as he is now. You will have everlasting life and great strength. If you should die before feasting upon an innocent, the world will be rid of the curse forever." Alder and Detective Hallam were disgusted to learn the missing children's fate. Yet they knew what needed to be done. "How do we find him?" asked Detective Hallam. Clee reached into her pocket and pulled out a vial filled with a thick crimson liquid. "This is the blood of a powerful innocent. When you have set your trap, drink it, and he will come to you before the day is out. It is important that you do not fail. If the Jackal was to consume the blood from this vial, or to consume the one who drank of this vial, he would become even more powerful. Clee handed the vial to Alder and hurried from the house, nearly knocking over Constable Hopkins, who was still waiting outside.